Bengals on a mission to finally beat the Browns in Cleveland. Mike Petraglia inside Huntington Bank Field in downtown Cleveland. Ideal conditions for this October 20th showdown between the Browns and Cincinnati Bengals. We're expecting clear skies, temperatures in the mid-60s throughout the entire game from 1 p.m. Eastern through till about 4 or 4:30 Eastern. Couldn't be better conditions for the Bengals and Browns to play this afternoon. No chance of precipitation. Wind could be a bit of a factor. We're talking about winds between 8 and 10 miles an hour, gusting up to 15 to 17 miles an hour. But again, no chance of precipitation, and you see the clear skies behind me. That should be really the situation all afternoon long. The Bengals come into this game. They know the storyline. They have lost 6 straight times here in Cleveland. At one point, you wouldn't have believed it, but the Bengals were 12-7 against the Browns in this very facility, dating back to the second incarnation of the Browns back in 1999. But the last 6 years, it has not been a friendly place to the Cincinnati Bengals. As a matter of fact, they haven't scored in the first half of the last 2 trips here in 2023, and of course that Halloween nightmare in 2022. They've been shut out in both of those games. Bengals look to get an early lead in this game and change the narrative, not only for the rest of their fan base, but for themselves. They want to have a sense that they are in command of this game going forward, and that is going to be very key. How do the Bengals go about doing that? The run game would be a good place to start. Of course, when you're talking Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, Bengals are going to want to throw the ball, but they're going to want to neutralize as much as you can. Myles Garrett, in 10 career games against the Cincinnati Bengals, Myles Garrett has 12 sacks and 25 quarterback hits. He has been a factor each and every time the Bengals have played the Cleveland Browns. So making sure he doesn't completely wreck the Bengals' offensive game plan would be a good place to start. You know, the coaching staff, Zach Taylor, and also offensive coordinator Dan Picture mentioned this week that the Browns will move Myles Garrett all along the defensive line and do it perhaps sometimes at the last second. Bengals want to avoid a situation like they had in that fourth quarter against the Giants when Brian Burns got through and drilled Joe Burrow to the ground. He got checked out for a concussion but didn't miss any time last Sunday night, of course, in that 17-7 win over the New York Giants. But that is the kind of protection the Bengals need. They need to account for a guy like Myles Garrett all along the offensive line to make sure that he doesn't hurry up the tempo of Joe Burrow. Last week, Joe Burrow said in playing a rough first half, he couldn't get into a rhythm. He had happy feet in the pocket, and certainly that has happened in years past with Myles Garrett here in Cleveland. So that's a good starting point for the Bengals, and certainly they are in healthy position. They had full attendance at practice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's a good sign. But defensively for the Bengals, Nick Chubb comes back for the Cleveland Browns from his multiple knee surgeries in the offseason. This will be his 2024 debut for the Cleveland Browns. And Nick Chubb, like Myles Garrett, has had career games against the Bengals. Bengals want to treat him much in the same way they treated Derrick Henry. They held Derrick Henry in check in that game against Baltimore 2 weeks ago until Henry ripped off that overtime run of 51 yards. But for the most part, they did a very commendable job against Derrick Henry. They need to get Nick Chubb today stopped before he can get momentum going past the line of scrimmage and into the second level of the defense. That's something to keep a very close eye on. The Browns, of course, they're a mess right now. They're 1-5. They traded away one of their top receiving targets, Amari Cooper, who was having a horrible year. Deshaun Watson is having a horrible year. 5 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. He hasn't really been able to do much for the Cleveland Browns offense, especially on third down, where the Browns are just 2 for their last 29 on third down. They've been horrific in that category, so the Bengals need to take advantage of that as well. This is a good game for the Bengals to get well and move closer to 500. The Bengals, of course, come in at 2-4. The Browns 1-5. Bengals feel to a man they got to have this game. It's a game they should win. Browns are in disarray. Bengals feel like they're getting momentum going, and it'll be interesting to see how the Bengals come out and get this game started. Again, the Bengals Bengals have not won here since October 1st of 2017, 31-7 over Cleveland. Since then, 6 straight losses on the shores of Lake Erie. Bengals look to change that starting today here at Huntington Bank Field. We'll have you covered, of course, as always, on the X at Trags, Trags, CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. Be sure to follow my Jungle Roar podcast YouTube page, youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod, not only for Locker Room Reaction, but the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod immediately after the game for all of the reaction and analysis from yours truly and Richard Skinner of Local 12. Inside Huntington Bank Field, Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.